So, how is D&D looking for 2024? We break down the state of the game going into its 50th anniversary.
This could get ugly real fast.
Last week, the retailer news site ICV2 released a bombshell sales report stating that Dungeons & Dragons sales were down 30% in 2023 compared to the previous year. Now, some caveats to all of this. That report is based solely off of sales figures from a select number of retailers and doesn't include the many other channels that D&D sells in, such as Amazon or D&D Beyond. However, it underlined a reality for the Dungeons & Dragons brand. Outside of Baldur's Gate 3, which was a massive success, it wasn't the best of years for the game thanks to a combination of weak releases and controversies such as the OGL. Even though Hasbro seems to be pleased by the overall performance of the D&D brand, again, thanks to Baldur's Gate 3, there may be a bit of underlying weakness with the brand as a whole. Now, we already know that Baldur's Gate 3, that gravy train is going to diminish as Larian isn't making any DLC for the game, which means that sales will likely start to slow this year. Luckily, the core D&D game has the chance to turn everything around this year with their 50th anniversary. It's a golden anniversary, and usually that's a chance for a publisher to turn out with some big releases. But while there are plenty of big crossovers planned for this year, like the massive Lego set, which looks awesome, and that pretty cool new line of Converse shoes and shirts and whatnot, the actual lineup of D&D rulebooks feels a little bit, well, underwhelming at first glance. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I had the chance to sit in on a roughly 6-hour press briefing with the D&D design team, who laid out their plans for the game's 50th anniversary at GaryCon. The two big releases, of course, are the Vecna Eve of Ruin adventure and the 2024 core rulebooks, which we're getting two of, the Player's Handbook and the Dungeon Master's Guide. However, we're also getting the Quests from the Infinite Staircase anthology and the Making of Original D&D, a new history book, kind of, that collects key documents from early D&D history, some of which are being published for the very first time. Now, during the press junket, it was noted that almost all of the upcoming releases had an element of celebration to them. The Making of and Quest book both celebrate D&D's past, while Vecna Eve of Ruin is a celebration of the present day with a focus on all of the content and campaign settings that have been featured in 5th edition. Of the three releases, I'm guessing that both Vecna and the anthology will do well in terms of sales. Vecna will move books simply off of name recognition, thanks to, that whole Stranger Things show. And the anthologies, from what I've been told by retailers and the D&D team themselves, those have always been sneakily strong sellers. But what's really odd about the press junket is how D&D is approaching the new core rulebooks, which are being called an update to 5th edition instead of a brand new edition. Based off of the sales numbers we referenced earlier in the video, it seems like a lot of stores and consumers are treating these core rulebooks as a new edition. Sales tend to dip right before a new edition. You see that in D&D, you see that in Warhammer, you see that in any game that has a new edition coming out on some sort of regular basis. Because, why buy a new core rulebook when a new one is just going to be coming out in a few months? And the books themselves are certainly more than just a glorified errata. We know that 96% of the art in the core rulebooks are brand new, everything is being presented in a new format, and the classes and the monsters are certainly getting refreshed with rebalances and new features galore. But I do think the desire to not call the 2024 core rulebooks a new edition, and that's because edition in D&D is something of a loaded term, is doing more harm than good here. D&D has made it clear that they're not fundamentally changing the game away from what we've been playing for the last decade. They're just updating all of the, player-facing rules. And that's partially to keep away from all the negative feelings associated with an edition split. But by doing so, they've undercut both the market awareness for the 2024 core rulebooks and the excitement for them, even though we're going to get more than just an errata in this new not edition. Of course, we also might not be talking about the core rulebooks because that's how the marketing cycle for these books works. Wizards doesn't usually look more than a product ahead, and they could be kind of not talking very much about the 2024 core rulebooks because they have 3 other products that they want to sell before those books even come out. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that 2024 is going to be a weird year for Dungeons & Dragons. The core rulebooks, they're probably going to do fine. But I don't think they're going to do fantastic, and I think that may have consequences for the rest of the brand. And I also expect to see more emphasis on the digital side of the game, whether that means the new VTT will finally come out, or maybe we're going to get more third-party stuff on D&D Beyond, or maybe we'll just get more digital exclusive content. But expect to see that become a bigger and bigger part of the game moving forward. All in all, I guess what I'm trying to say is get ready for more of the "is D&D dying" discourse, at least until the sales figures start coming out later this year, and we hear what Wizards wants to do in 2025 and 2026. Let us know your thoughts about the state of D&D in the comment section below, and don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons.